Well, without further ado, let's jump into our little recap. And if you enjoy these recaps and you watch them separate from the main video, let us know in the comments so we should know if we should keep cutting these out as their own separate videos. Otherwise, we'll keep them as one intact video. But doing the recap, we like to take the 4 or 5 hour episode and break it down into a 15-20 minute chunk. And then we jump into our full discussion. So having said that, this was episode 107, and I'll let Will tell you the name of it.
Underneath the Eyes of the Arkheart. I'm not looking at it. I didn't write it down, but I think it's something like that.
From what we know happened in the episode, I'm shipping that. I like that. Yeah. We're going with it. So the episode picks up on like the cusp of this battle scene. We have Sarlord Zethuda, Gloamgut, Ludinus, or Snowcone Ludinus, or I don't know what to call it, Simulacrum Ludinus.
Snowdinus, I think is the official terminology.
And then we have the emissary of the Unseelie Court and a couple of their guards. Long story short, this first half is actually, the runtime is about 4.5 hours, and about 3.5 hours is this battle sequence between Bell's Hells and these individuals. So typically what we do in combat is we just cover the high notes of it. What I will tell you is, as this combat starts, you have some of the party that's like up in like the window looking over the battle scene, or like this sort of temple area. Then you have other people who are like the actual boots on the ground. And there's a couple of different strategies that are happening in this battle. Namely, first of all, Chetney has the idea early on in combat to grab the notes from Ludinus from Malesmere, where they had first found like the Staff of the Dark Intent, I think is what it was called. But they first found out about the harness and got the harness from that location. And if you recall, these notes are like basically, it were essentially Ludinus's description of going around and consuming these fae with the harness. But anyway, Chetney hands these notes over to Fern and is like, you'll know what to do. And then Ashley Johnson's like, what the heck you want me to do with this? Just a great moment. But essentially on Fern's turn, we're going to have a few instances of her really amping up the daughter angle of like, Dad, help me. And by the way, Ludinus can't be trusted, and just is going very heavy into this. Ludinus will betray you. I have proof. He's been killing fae. And so that's her approach. We also have notably Imogen, who decides at one point during combat that she, you know, the cast has been big on taming Gloamgut, and she sees her opportunity when the Sarlord is no longer on top of Gloamgut. She decides she's going to sneak up to Gloamgut and try to mount Gloamgut and take its reins. She has an animal handling check, and Matt gives her advantage because of her past, you know, working on a farm, essentially a stable, you know, loving horses rather, and being Rudis born. And she seemingly is successful through navigating the bridle, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, of Gloamgut. There is this sort of like prismatic breath that goes out across the battlefield, but then eventually she's able to like move in motion with Gloamgut. Anyway, through the process of combat, there is like a central pillar to the temple that is getting damaged as combat's going on, and it looks like if it does break, the entire temple will collapse. And then at one point, Snowdinus, the Ludinus Simulacrum, is preparing to cast I can't remember if it was this moment or a later moment, but we very much get like the version 2.0 of the Laudna counterspells Ludinus from the previous time, where Ludinus prepares to cast a spell and Laudna casts counterspell. And I think this one actually was successful because I think Ludinus didn't know that Laudna was casting it, so couldn't counterspell in return, if I'm remembering correctly. I can't remember exactly.
It was something like that.
Either way, there is a cast that's going off of an 8th level spell, but Ludinus can't decide who to cast it on, decides to hold his action of actually casting it, and before it comes back around to his turn, he is actually destroyed. The Simulacrum is destroyed, I think, by Ashton. With Luton is gone, Fern sees an opportunity to again really hamp up this divide between Ludinus and the Unseelie Court. Combat seemingly stops for a moment as they realize, hey, we might have a common foe here with Ludinus, and the party begins to very anxiously navigate this conversation of like, what happens without Ludinus? Where do we go from here? And I think the party kind of envisioned like a, hey, we're all friends, let's go attack Ludinus. But instead, Sorrow Lord Zethuda instead talks about, not only are we going to kill Ludinus, but with me, we're going to destroy the resistance, i.e. The people attacking the Malleus Key and basically the good guys. And then we're going to, Fern, we're going to ferry you directly to the cage around Predathos where you can basically accept your destiny. And there's some mentions too about Dark Fern, which we'll get into in our discussion. But essentially, Zethuda's like, this is who you were always meant to be. Well, the party realizes that, okay, well, we like the idea of killing Ludinus. We didn't really fully expect the angle of like kill all of our friends too. So as like this dialogue is happening, Fern actually asks Zethuda about how to scratch and pet Gloamgut. And as he's distracted, Imogen is going to cast Psychic Lance on Zethuda. Which this is not just a successful spell, but when it is a successful spell, or rather when Zethuda fails the wisdom saving throw, he is incapacitated. So he goes down incapacitated. The emissary who was on Gloamgut preparing to escape gets vine whipped off by Aurum. And essentially combat starts again. There's another successful Psychic Lance on Zethuda that takes him out another turn. We also get a Disintegrate spell from Laudna that is designed to kill Zethuda, but actually doesn't do quite enough hit points of damage against him, though his leg, I think Matt said, was like totally disintegrated in this spell. It just gets totally like knocked off. All this to say, as combat begins again, that pillar that I mentioned breaks. The temple begins to collapse. Fern wants to protect the Sorrow Lord Zethuda and pull him out. Imogen and Breus are trying to help as well, as everyone is trying to escape. And essentially, most of the party makes it out of this temple as it collapses, except for, I think it was Breus and Imogen, who are inside as the temple crumbles on top of them. And that is where we go to break, if you want to take it from there.
Yes, sir. And there's a lot of information in this second half,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't that long.
Good
So y'all
luck,
bear
right?
with me. I'll try not to get too long-winded here.
Yep.
But so we pick up, like Blake said, with the majority of the party outside of this crumbling ruined temple, but Breus, Imogen, and the unconscious body of Zethuda still inside. So the ones that are outside basically immediately move to start going through this rubble to try and, save their friends. Meanwhile, Dorian, who's outside with the unconscious body of the emissary, has these emissary guards like start walking towards him. And so he's like, and he like tries to weaken it, Bernie's it, but then quickly abandons that idea. And I think throws up, I forget the name of the spell, hypnotic illusion or something, pattern maybe. And is successful on both of the emissary guards. So they are, for the next minute, kind of not a problem. And so Dorian takes this time to tie up the emissary. We then cut to Breus and Imogen, who again are inside, but we see that they are okay. They're like in this cavity in the crumbled temple. Like they have been like protected by some unseen force that has created this safe space for them. And as they're inside, they see these rocks begin to move. And slowly but surely, they see the temple reconstructing itself. And so as this is happening, everybody that was outside also sees this. And they're like, what? And so all bells hells like run in to Imogen and Breus. And, Laudna runs up and hugs her. Meanwhile, Zethuda is making death saving throws. And he's made 2, I believe, at this point when Breus performs a medicine check to try to stabilize him. This is successful, so he is okay for now, but still unconscious. They decide to like kind of keep walking in the temple and see what's going on here as it fully rebuilds. And it's at this point that they notice the statue of the Arkheart get rebuilt, and then its eyes kind of shift. And it's at this moment that Matt stands up from the table, walks away, and Abu Bakr Salim comes and sits down in the DM chair. Everyone freaks out. No one in the cast knew this was happening. And he basically just immediately picks up where Matt left off as the statue, like just fully automated and moving now. And the first thing he does is approach Breas, and he says, "You really have to smash my face in," because Breas had done that earlier. And as he says that, they hear like this screech, and the like roof of the temple opens up, and he describes like these portals with arms that like stretch out and grab everybody essentially. And then the next thing they know, all of Bell's hells are somewhere else. And we come to find out that they are in the domain of the Archeart now. He describes it as kind of this open field of crystalline reeds and beautiful stars and constellations above. And the Archeart himself is like this silhouetted form kind of within the stars, sort of. Very, very beautiful as he describes it. And he continues looking at Brea, saying, "You're in my domain now, so swear fealty to me, and I'll let you live." And Breas does not want to do this, but ultimately says, there are more important things in life than living. Like there's, my family and friends. So no, like I'm not going to do that. And the Archeart laughs and says, "I almost had you, but I respect it." So welcome you all to, I guess, what is my home. And he goes, "I've seen," or he asks what they have seen, referring to Downfall. And so the party then explains to him the vision that they saw of Downfall. And as they do, he like materializes this table with food and drink, and for them to enjoy. And so after they explain what they saw, he says, "Well, what are you going to do with this information? What are you going to do with this knowledge of Aor? And what are you doing in my temple right now?" And Orem at that point then explains Ludinus and kind of Ludinus's whole plan with Predathos, and basically just gets the Archeart up to speed on what Bell's Hells knows. And he says, we're just afraid what's going to happen if Ludinus succeeds. What's going to happen to this delicate balance between the gods and the mortals if Predathos is unleashed. And the Archeart says that, I fear that too. I fear the disruption of that balance. But part of me wonders if that balance needs to be broken, because something needs to change. Our children continuously rebel. There's just this cycle, a perpetual cycle of, us going away and then something happening and us stepping in. And during this conversation, he notices the Titan shards within Fern and Ashton, and he's very fascinated by those. And then Ashton, I'm probably gonna hit just random things that happen in this conversation, but Ashton says, like, just what do you guys want? Like, what do you gods actually want? Why can't you just let go? And the Archeart says, that actually is what I want. I want to let go. I'm bored, tired, but the real question is, how do we let go? Because big divine gates don't work. Death isn't an option. Like, we're not trying to die. So, like, how exactly do we do that? I think I have an idea. And he describes that there's a window of opportunity here, but there will be sacrifice involved. And he basically then asks about the whole vessel thing and if they understand what it means to be a vessel. Laudna chimes in, obviously, with her experience with Delilah. And so they say they're familiar with it, but obviously they don't know what's going to happen to Predathos' vessel. And the Archeart says, well, yeah, there's a few of us who do like want to let go, want to leave, but not all of us. We're divided in this moment. And we're doing this same song and dance again, where we're all sitting at a table deciding what to do. Should we intervene? Should we not? We are this close to another calamity, because we fear our death, just like we did last time. So the truth is, lives will be lost no matter what, all in the service of us staying alive. And I think that's incredibly selfish. And I'm seeing that now. I thought we could change, but we couldn't, because here we are again. So I think the only solution is to have what Ludinus desires, aka Predathos being freed. But I think what we need to do is have one of you two, I think he's referring to Imogen and Fern as the root is born, be the vessel and control Predathos and chase us away. He thinks that's the only way to truly save humanity, because they can't evolve and flourish if the gods are always just sitting there waiting to intervene. and they will not leave of their own accord. They'll need to like leave in fear from Pedathos. Like that's going to be the only way to accomplish this. But he says, I don't know what's going to happen to the vessel, though. So that's why this will require sacrifice. So there's this back and forth basically on that whole thing. Chet asks a few questions. We confirm that 2 of their gods did die when Pedathos first arrived, 2 of their family. And then he also asks, have you had this same conversation with Ludinus? Like, or is that where this came from? And he says, no. While I do kind of like the idea, as I'm telling you here, Ludinus is not the one. Like, he's too selfish. He wants to be like us. He's too caught up. But the art card says the main important thing with this plan is you have to be faster than us because we aren't going to let this happen. Like Ludinus's whole plan, we aren't going to allow that because that threatens us. So we will step in just like we did in Aor. And that's like the plan. Like when this big battle happens, when all these moves are to be made, like we're going to show up and it's going to be Calamity Part 2. So that's why you have to be faster than us. That's why you guys need to sneak in, become the vessel, and make this plan happen to force us to flee. And none of the other gods know about this, obviously. Like this is just me as the Archart saying this plan. Well, they're like, well, we still don't know. Like, even if the Pedathos is in a vessel, will we be able to contain him? What if he turns on humanity? And the Archart says that Pedathos does not care about humanity. You're nothing to him. He has one desire, and that is to consume us. So, like, you don't need to worry about that. Breus asks if they were to flee from Pedathos, would everyone flee? Like, would all the gods flee? Even Asmodeus being the implication here. And Archart is like, yes, like we would all go. There's a little moment where he like pretends to summon Asmodeus to like try to convince Breus as well, but it was just like a little gambit. So they keep talking about this, and he just eventually says, I'm just being honest with you guys, presenting the only option that I can see to actually like end this perpetual cycle that we're in. We'll only run from something we fear, and that is Pedathos. It's like the only option. And this is a unique opportunity because there's a divide in the family for the first time. We aren't all aligned on stepping in to do another calamity. Some of us want to leave. Some of us refuse to leave the children. So, like, because we're divided in that way, this is the only option. Like, we will only all run if we fear Pedathos. Dorian's like, do you think a vessel could even really control Pedathos? And he says, I don't know. That's what's exciting about this. Every other previous time or threat, like we could always see through it to the other side. This one scenario is the one where I don't know what's going to happen. And so that's why it's like the only option. Again, otherwise we're going to step in and like Calamity Part 2. So I think this is the best shot. And again, if you take too long to decide, this decision will be made for you. Dorian says, I never cared for the gods, but I'll make a deal with them if it means we're rid of you guys for forever. So Dorian's on board with this. The Archart then pulls a star from the sky at the end of this and asks them to all walk toward it. And there's this like gaunt feminine face within the star that's whispering about a wish and a weapon. And the Archart says, this was someone dear to me. And there's this, and we'll talk more about this in our discussion, but there's this hair at the end of the star woman's mouth. And Imogen goes and plucks it and pulls on it, and it starts to like wrap around her finger, and the star like dissolves as it does. And there's this like brilliant, powerful flash of light. And during this, Laudna gets a vision of the Raven Queen that says, come find me. And they hear like this voice in their heads that says, you've heard my side of things. You'll have to make your decision, but you don't have much time, and just do what you think's right. They then all wake back up on like the floor of the temple in the Feywild. Abu gets up, walks away. Matt comes back, sits back down. Imogen now has this like golden ring around her finger where the hair was, and Matt gives her an item card. This is a vestige of divergence, we find out. Crazy item, gives you +2 AC, +2 spell, +2 spell DC, advantage on cons, and when you make a concentration spell check, if you roll higher than your current HP, you'll cast Meteor Swarm. But if you roll below, you basically take the damage of a Meteor Swarm yourself. And that's where the episode ends. Once again, episode 107, Beneath the Gaze of the Arc Heart or something. If you're just on our recap, be sure to check our full discussion. And yeah,